everybody. Welcome back to the Matthew Schreiner podcast. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the supposed contradictions Redeemed Zoomer has against the Catholic Church. If you want better videos about it, you can check out some of the ones I'll leave in the description. Christian Wagner's video, and then this one, which I haven't watched all the way through. I watched most of Christian Wagner's video. I didn't watch all of it. I watched, like, the beginning of it. And then I watched, I started to watch this one, but I didn't watch all of it. His big argument that I want to point out is that all of these can just be apologized against by huge and copious amounts of mental gymnastics. That's his argument. Catholics can refute all of these points, but it requires a lot of mental gymnastics. But anyways, I just want to make one big point that I'm going to make is in a later episode, although I think I pretty much made it in my last episode, where I said the Eucharist is the best proof of the Catholic Church. If we have Jesus, then there's no argument against that. As well, like the most recent comments by Pope Leo about being pro-life and the death penalty and all that, and Redeemed Zoomer made a comment about that. That's a off-the-cuff argument, which is why here we do know when a pope or a council is infallible, because they say, we declare as doctrine for the Church. This has been how things have gone from the beginning. We have creeds and other things that form our belief, right, but councils declare these. And so things like, he talks about this, when they say that things are anathema, that's like a declaration. We can tell when the Church is trying to use its infallibility because it's the Pope in a council with bishops, so the Pope making a comment off the cuff on an EWTN interview is not infallible, because Jesus didn't say, you are Peter, and upon this rock I build my church, and every comment you make when you're interviewed down the line in the future, yeah, that's going to be an infallible statement. That I don't think that's how infallibility works, that we can just take every statement the Pope ever makes and just say, oh, well, it's infallible because the Pope is always exercising that office of infallibility. No, he's not. He's exercising it especially when he's talking with the bishops, because the bishops aren't infallible. The bishops are given authority in certain things, but they're not infallible. Not every action they do is infallible. So, anyways, and that's mental, if that's mental gymnastics, whatever, because he can do as much mental gymnastics he wants about his Calvinism and everything, so. And then I want to mention this, which is an argument that I saw made elsewhere, but not everyone who cries, Lord, Lord, will be saved. And that's an argument that just because you say you're Christian, and even if just because you say you're Catholic, doesn't mean you're going to be saved, right? So not everyone will be saved, not everyone will be brought to heaven who says, well, Jesus is God, Jesus is Lord. And this is an argument because not every Catholic is going to be saved. So I just want to make this argument that just because you claim Jesus is Lord, that doesn't guarantee you'll be saved. So, anyways, next is this point I wanted to make. He talks about Protestantism at the end, all these things. And so what I wanted to point out is, well, what Protestant churches are true? Is it only his idea of Protestantism, his Reconquista communion of churches? Because then we go on to, well, who can decide who decides where the true church is? What markings will the true church have? So is it just what this one guy says? Is Redeemed Zoomer our infallible rule of faith? Well, that goes to, well, what makes up the church? And so it's kind of a big circular argument. And then with that too, if Jesus, his argument of for God so loved the world, well, does that mean that everyone's saved and that only those who go to hell is just the quote-unquote really bad people? Well, that's universalism. That's universalism that says, and other religions that say there's no hell, or universalism that says, well, all religions are true, all religions are a path to God, as long as you know. So, and then here too, I didn't include the posts here, but basically, Redeemed Zoomer talked about, well, if you don't have Jesus, because Jesus is the only way, you don't have eternal life, and everyone who denies Jesus won't have eternal life, so there you go. Redeemed Zoomer, you're already saying, to be saved, you have to have Jesus. So, there you go. You're deciding for yourself, yes, Jesus says this in the scripture, but what does he mean by this? Because he mentions this, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son that man would live. So, Anyways, and then the real Catholic Church is a PCUSA, and everyone we are in communion with. So that's kind of just what I wanted to point out. This is from a Christian Wagner post on Twitter, and these two videos. I'm not a big fan of slang terms, and I'm not a big fan of modern things for the most part. So Scholastic Answers, Christian Wagner calling him quote unquote rage bait. Again, I really don't like using slang terms. I find them highly unprofessional. I really don't like to use them. I prefer to use even in my videos and my discussions online. I am very grammatical. When I text people, I mean, my friend doesn't like this. I write out full sentences. I don't use LOL. I rarely use exclamations, or not exclamations. I rarely use other things. I am always very professional with my wordings, with my writings, and that goes to everything because I put 100% into everything. I try to. I don't always put 100% into these videos, but I always try and put my best foot forward with editing, my best foot forward with recording. I mean, I apologize for this one. You're just looking at my notes here. This is OneNote. I enjoy using OneNote. Next is not being lukewarm. And if you ask me, this is, and not just if you ask me, this is from the scriptures. Jesus says, you don't want to be hot. He says, you want to be hot or cold. You don't want to be lukewarm, right? Like, what is something that is good lukewarm? Like, if I reheat something in the microwave, I'm reheating it because I want it to be hot. I don't want to eat lukewarm that pasta that's been sitting out. I want to reheat it because then it's warm again. Or tea. Tea is a good example. I want hot tea or I want cold tea. Lukewarm tea, tea that's been sitting out for an hour, that's disgusting. Right? So not being lukewarm, things are either 1 or 0. Like there is no gradient, there is no whatever. So my argument there is Catholicism can only be true or not true. Because if Catholics believe that they are the true church, and you say, oh, well, Catholicism, it's just another form of Christianity. They just profess faith in Jesus. But then they have all these, like, weird beliefs that just seem not to fit in with other Christians. Like, they believe that the Eucharist is the flesh of Jesus. If it's not the flesh of Jesus, and then Catholics are wrong about other doctrines, then how is the Catholic Church true? It's an anti-church leading to the deaths of many. So I prefer anti-Catholics because while their arguments are nonsense and many Christians don't like them and other stuff, I find them more respectable than most Protestants because Catholicism can only be true or not. And that's what a lot of apologists will say too. That's what Scott Hahn thought. Scott Hahn was a staunch anti-Catholic. He even taught people the quote-unquote errors of Romanism. He became Catholic, and he talks about the Eucharist being this big stumbling block. So that's my point. And then I want to point out this comment from Christian Wagner's stream. This was in the comments. Guys, I actually know why Redeemed Zoomer has been recently... I really hate slang. I just absolutely hate it. I refuse to use it. I refuse to write it. I refuse to make jokes of the nature of the modern... I just won't. They will not be in these videos. I just find them, it's annoying. Alright, so I'm just gonna read this verbatim. Guys, I actually know why RZ has been recently crashing out on Catholicism. To put it plainly, he got embarrassed by both Wagner and Heschmeyer back in May. With Wagner, RZ got refuted for his, quote, counsels contradict each other claim, end quote. It was pretty one-sided, and it really hurt RZ's ego. Why, you may ask? He spent a whole month studying Catholicism, making up all these grand points to refute it, only to have a guy dismantle all his arguments in 2 hours, lol. For Joe, RZ exposed himself by admitting that he hadn't even watched Joe's video criticizing Calvinism, and yet still has the audacity to form a rebuttal to that same video. By the way, I haven't watched any of these videos that are mentioned here, but if they're half as bad as it sounds, well... Around that same time as Catholics got a new pope and the world saw how universal and united we were in Rome during Pope Leo's election. I saw a post this afternoon that was Father James Martin, and then they put a photo of Cardinal Burke with Pope Leo, and they're like, yeah, we're one big happy family church. We might be kind of separated, but we're all under one big pope. And then Father James Martin reposted and he put a comment like that. And yes, well, I disagree with James Martin. we're still Catholic. Like, we still hold to something very fundamentally true. And we hold that this guy in Rome, from Chicago, is a successor of Peter. Like, we can trace our roots back to Jesus Christ himself. And that's what matters. Where was I? Not to mention the records we broke for new converts in the Easter Vigil. So RZ is just bitter at one, that he got schooled by Wagner and Heschmeyer. Oh, and I don't know why he puts Wagner and then Joe Heschmeyer. Obviously, this was under Wagner's video, but I'm just shortening it. And two, the unparalleled rise and success of Catholicism, plus Catholics trolling him online make him go crazy. Catholic trolls are annoying, to be fair, which doesn't really make sense for someone his age who's married and entering seminary, but it is what it is. Also, is there any photos of RZ with his wife, or are they all just like the video when he got engaged was just him holding her hand and whatever? But whatever, I'm not going to go that far. Someone his age, he gets very immature in a lot of things, I will say, at least from some of the streams of his I've seen online. Very much someone of the Zoomer age. What was the other thing? Oh, and Catholic trolls. Yeah, he actually blocked me on Twitter, and I refuse to call it X. He blocked me on Twitter, but probably in all fairness, I deserved it, so. Next is, okay, so this is from Christian Wagner's video. I took a screenshot of this because I actually wanted to read it because I thought it was a pretty good post about, well, why is RZ now all of a sudden being so ticked off at Catholics and making a video on their contradictions. These next, all of them are from, RZ's official Twitter. And so this is a post RZ reposted. All of these are pretty much ones he's either reposted, and this one is a unique one that I've talked about before, but we're just going to read his retweets now. So this is from a Protestant. I'm interested to see the full response videos from Catholics. Also, supposedly, I don't know if I wrote this down anywhere here. Oh yeah, I didn't. But supposedly Christian Wagner is going to do a 10-hour stream about refuting, RZ, and I think that's completely insane that he thinks it's going to be a 10-hour video, because I think he can totally do it in, like, 2 hours. How many points did RZ make? RZ's video is 1 hour, so, I mean, assuming you just either boil down all his arguments, either you go through his entire video and you refute it, or you just write down what is his main arguments, and then that'll take you an hour, 2 hours to just take the arguments he makes, evidence he makes, and refute it. Or you just say, hey, watch this video, and I'm just gonna go and refute all his points, so 1 here, 2 here, and all that, and just, if you want to see his full source, his arguments and everything, go and watch his video. But again, I'm not Christian Wagner. I've watched a couple of his videos. I've actually grown to appreciate him. I really like his Twitter. I follow his Twitter. And so, Twitter, I use Twitter and Facebook, and I check that daily. I'm starting to think that I should break away from technology more. I just think, and I just check it during lunch. That's the essence of what I do. That's where I stay on social media the longest, and then these videos, of course, but, well, regardless. I'm interested to see the full response from Catholics. I have seen some say it's full of ad hominem. Also, it says at home, that's supposed to be ad hominem, and other fallacies, so I'll be interested to see the receipts. And I'm gonna act like that, so I'll be interested to see the receipts. Ooh. I had a lot of conversations with Mormons, and anytime you point out an obvious contradiction in their religion to them, they will also say it's an ad hominem attack, but then they have really weak rebuttals to defend against it, use a metric ton of mental gymnastics and word games to claim it's not a contradiction, etc. So I hope the Catholic apologists bring their A-game for this one. And I think they will. I think Christian Wagner will, and I think... Isn't Trent Horn supposed to have a video on this? I'm going to pull up my cellular device, because I don't want to pull up my phone. Oh, let's see. Brought up. Let's look up Trent Horn. He does have a new video. I take that back. He doesn't. No, but it's funny. The first recommended video is one with RZ, a short with RZ. Um, yeah, he was supposed to have a new video, but he said he was working on one with RZ. The post is post from 2 days ago that's been edited. No episode today, and no episode today either. Right, new videos every Monday and Wednesday. But anyways, he's working with RZ and Trent Horn. Trent's an awesome guy. Um, he's talking with someone commented this here, communicating with someone beforehand who you disagree with to be fair to them. What a guy. Trent Horn is just amazing. He is probably the best Catholic apologist out there. And I'm not the only one who believes that. I think of all the apologists, he's the best. Matt Fred's good too, but Matt Fred's not as much apologetics. Matt Fred is great, but I think the best, Trent Horn has to be the best. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I have a priest, and I know a priest, and he likes Trent Horn, not, but and again with the internet, I think of all the Catholic apologists, if you want to watch Catholic content, stick with like Trent Horn, Matt Frad, and I always recommend Brian Holdsworth. He's a smaller one in Canada, but Trent Horn, I mean, and he's such a great guy, and with his wife, I mean, just the way he handles everything and does everything, Trent Horn is just incredible. Um, Regardless, Catholics bring their A game. Also, the conversation with Mormons, they present the ad hominem text and all that mental gymnastics. Of course, it's easy for me to say, oh, well, Mormonism is obviously false. But I feel like when we're talking about Mormonism, there's something a little bit different between Catholics and Mormons. Because Mormons claim their biggest claim, and it can obviously be argued with as much mental gymnastics as possible and seem reasonable. But I think the biggest point against the Mormons is what is the thing that they stand on. They stand on the Book of Mormon. So if the Book of Mormon is false, well then it doesn't matter, because this is the core of your religion, right? This is how everything starts. And then there are arguments of the church, that the church fell into apostasy, and that the true church, and this is kind of an argument of like Martin Luther and some of the other restorationists. The restorationist movement was really a second great awakening movement and following, but really I'm pointing out how the Mormons believe this. They believe the church fell into apostasy and had to be restored, and that restoration, and it fell into apostasy like very early on, but then it took until Joseph Smith that the church actually restored itself. Basically, I don't know when they say the great apostasy happened. Oh, and by the way, apostasy is like this big thing that everyone talks about. Like sedevacantist claim apostasy, some other restorationists claim apostasy, probably some Protestants, and there's a difference between Protestants and restorationists. Restorationists are somewhat Protestant. Protestants are not all restorationists. Again, it's however we want to put it. It's, you know, the next one is another one. Catholics will make memes about how they, quote, don't even think about Protestants, end quote, but then gather en masse to have a collective freakout whenever Redeemed Zoomer says anything critical. I just pointed this one out to just share it. Agree or disagree about it, but whatever. This next one, Redeemed Zoomer's 1 hour video about Catholic contradictions was really good and convincing. All I have to do is add one. All I have to add is one thing. The more infallible teachings that you add, the more likely you are to contradict yourself. These lists of contradictions will only grow. So basically, what he's saying is, if you just keep adding to an infallible list, you're gonna contradict yourself. And it's not like we're growing a list. It's not like every week the Pope's coming out with a new infallible doctrine. It's not like if the Pope doesn't like pineapple on pizza, it's not like he's declaring that this is an infallible thing that has to be held by the church. And it's not like the Pope's sayings or rulings on things in an interview on EWTN about a congressman in Illinois, whether he knows or doesn't know about the situation, you know. Um, that's not infallible. So, England is no longer Protestant, correct? This is what it looked like when it was. And I wrote this here. Protestantism laid the seeds of modern liberalism. Now, modern LGBT ideology and its fault all lays back in Luther and King Henry VIII. What was the first church to allow for contraception? The Church of England. the Church of England allowed for contraception in the 30s. And that was the start of everything we have today with Protestants and such. So, is England Protestant? It still pretty much is. It still is the Church. The Church of England is still the State Church of England. It is still very intertwined. Whatever you want to say about Muslims in England, well, the Church of England is still the Church of England. It's still the Church of England. It's still a government institution. The king still has power over it. So, yes, England is still very Protestant. Also, whatever you're gonna say, I don't know if RG. I don't know RG. I can't speak. I don't know what RZ's thinking about women in leadership is. I was in St. Paul's Cathedral, the Church of the Anglican Diocese of London, and I'm walking in, and my third thought was actually that this was a Catholic church. I didn't realize that the St. Paul's was because I thought Westminster Abbey was the Church of London, the Diocese of London in the Anglicans. I was wrong, and technically Westminster Abbey is in Westminster, not London. But I digress, because Westminster is the seat of Catholicism in England nowadays, where the Catholic Church has their see for Westminster, and that goes for the whole of the London area, basically. I did not see Westminster Cathedral. I did not see Westminster Abbey. I did not see Parliament. But I saw St. Paul's, and when I walked into St. Paul's, I hear a woman like reciting similar words of the Mass, and I'm like, oh wait, this isn't Catholic. Yeah. So I don't know what his opinions on women preachers are, but again, big Anglican thing. I don't know what the first Protestant church to allow female ministers was. But anyways, this isn't a video about female ministers. This is about RZ. Also, what's the point of arguing against RZ? He doesn't find Catholic arguments strong enough. You know, it's only the institution. Well, I don't find his arguments. I don't find his arguments good enough because he doesn't have a large enough platform, or I don't like the platform he has, or whatever. You know. Oh, and recover our historic institutions. How are you going to recover them? I don't think it's possible to recover them. I think we have a deep-seated infiltration, for lack of a better term, and I don't know how you're just gonna fix that with your group of online people. However, you know, in person, you're designing it to be Catholic arguments would be laughed at if they didn't have a giant institution. Or Orthodox instead of Sedevacantist arguments are just as reasonable as Catholic arguments. Depends on what kind of Sedevacantist you're talking about. Are you talking about Brother Peter Diamond? Or are you talking about, like, the SSPX? Right? Like, what are you talking about? Are you saying that Oriental Orthodox, but what are you saying about, I'm just curious. Did he mention, I think he mentioned the Diamond Brothers in his most recent video. Obviously, the Diamond Brothers aren't standing for the Catholic Church. They're more Protestant than they are Catholic because they basically are they're basically Protestant with extra steps. They add and say, well, we can judge what a council says or what anything else says based on our own opinion. So, it doesn't matter what we say because he has given up on true apologetics. He doesn't want to hear our arguments. He just believes that people believe us because we have a larger institution. And I will put it this way. The institution is a great argument. That's the argument I'm using. Because Jesus established our institution, and we believe that Jesus established it, and that he left us the Eucharist, and the Eucharist is the best proof, because if Jesus resides in the church and the Eucharist is truly Jesus, well, then everything the Catholic Church says has to at least be true. Because you can't just say, well, the Catholic Church has the Eucharist, but, you know, they're wrong about everything else. Right? That's silly. That is counterintuitive. And here's a fun one. Every PCUSA contradiction explained. This is from Substack. I have my own Substack too because everyone's doing it now. Yes, if every Catholic apologist were to jump off a bridge, they wouldn't because that's suicide and the church is against suicide. Anyways, the manifold errors of the PCUSA. Anyways, this is pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny, but, you know, it's interesting. So I'll leave this in the description. Here's all this, and he can make any of his mental gymnastics he wants, but but I won't agree with it because his institution isn't big enough, and only his arguments are only true if his institution is big. That's according to RC. You know, it's all about truth. I don't know. I just find this post funny. When I first saw it, I'm like, oh, this is funny. This is funny. I'm like, he's giving up on apologetics. Like, this seems counterintuitive. Like, it's about finding truth, not about, But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a rather short one, rather unplanned one, rather unscripted one. But I just wanted to give it a quick look at because I think it's important to look at what's going on. I wanted to do a video on Saint Therese, whose feast was yesterday. There's so much you can talk about with the little flower, and well, I didn't. I did read her I can't speak. I did read her autobiography over the summer. It was a good read. I would recommend you read it. The back of it said every Catholic should have this book, every Catholic should read this book. So if you are a Catholic, or even if you are a Protestant, it is a good read. I honestly would like to read it in its original French. I feel like there's something that is, like, lost in translation between it. Like, there's something that I feel like I could get out better if I read the original French, right? Like, there's just something about that. Same with the Bible. I mean, that's why a lot of people learn, like, Hebrew. That's why a lot of people learn Greek. That's why a lot of people learn Latin, so they can get out better what the true purpose, the true nature of the writing was. And so, anyways, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know you didn't see me in this one, but the next video will probably be more on par with normalness. The next video is about the Eucharist and its proof for Catholicism, like I mentioned here, and obviously that'll take a much deeper dive into it, but there's so much that can be said that it's just a quick dive into it. That's it for today. God bless. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Doing so helps us to spread this Catholic and Christian message to all. Please also consider supporting this channel on Patreon.